Hello.
Hello.
Hello, Neil.
Hello, Neely Bob.
Not saying much this week, huh? I see.
I see.
Just staring at me with those big, black,
Beady eyes.
beady, trans Muslim unicorn eyes.
His unicorn eyes.
Yeah. So Neil's transmogrified into unicorn this week, and that's all we have to say about that.
Yes.
But what have we got to say about anything else?
Well, there's a few things that happened in the world.
No.
I said a few.
Only a few, okay. Don't be getting ahead
It's
of
a
yourself.
big world. It's a big world.
Stuff happened.
There's a lot of things, okay? It's a big world. Big, gigantic world. Biggest world you've ever seen.
And I did them all. I made them all happen.
Made them all happen. He's getting a Nobel Peace Prize, don't you know?
He definitely wants one. Did you see what he call her?
Yeah, what's her name? The blonde.
Yeah,
That blonde.
that blonde chick, White House spokesperson. I mean, it's really blatant. Like, I mean, it's just, I don't know. How do you even deal with this kind of situation? The end of history. We were told the end of history was meant to come after the fall of the Soviet Union, but it's actually, we have to wait for the fall of America, and it's happening right now. This is, what's her face?
Caroline Leavitt.
Caroline, leave it alone. Here she's talking about, have a listen.
The president has now ended conflicts between Thailand and Cambodia, Israel and Iran, Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of the Congo, India and Pakistan, Serbia and Kosovo, and Egypt and Ethiopia. This means President Trump has brokered, on average, about one peace deal or ceasefire per month during his 6 months in office. It's well past time that President Trump was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize.
Yeah. So she just wanted to throw that in there, as if it hasn't been said by Trump himself more than enough. But like I said, just my thought in that video on her saying that again, coming up again, was that it's kind of wild to think that the main motivation behind Trump's foreign policy is to get himself a Nobel Peace Prize. He's a big child, basically, because he fails to understand, I think, that that's not how you get a Nobel Peace Prize. Does he know that? He doesn't know that, obviously. He doesn't know a lot of things.
Yeah.
People get awarded a Nobel Peace Prize for doing the things that they just do naturally. They don't go out seeking to get a Nobel Peace Prize, like actively, what can I do today? Get me that Nobel Peace Prize. That's kind of goes against the whole ethos of the idea of the Nobel Peace Prize. But Trump doesn't care because he makes his own rules, right?
To be fair to him, what did Obama do?
Well, that's it.
His?
On two counts. First of all, that's not the way you get a Nobel Peace Prize. On the other count is that Nobel Peace Prize has been discredited enough at this point, particularly with Obama getting awarded it and a few other people before him, that it was obviously it's obviously been politicized, and it's a joke. It's been compromised. It's not objective at all, and they'll just hand it out to anybody who can, for partisan, political, or leverage reasons or whatever. So it's a joke, at this point. So the fact that we'd even want one, it's like Obama's living rent free in his head type thing. It's like that Obama got him. I have to beat that guy, which is kind of racist, because I think he's actually doing it because he's black, or maybe it's because he's semi gay or bisexual or something. Anyway, he just doesn't like him, and he thinks that anything that Obama did, he has to do one better, at least get the same, right? He probably wants 2 Nobel Peace Prizes.
Yeah.
He probably wants one.
Well, if he gets one now, then when he brokers the deal with Russia and Ukraine, then he's definitely going to get a second one.
Well, he should get one for each of those wars that he stopped, those imaginary wars that nobody really knew much about for most of them. He should get one for each of them, no? He just give him 6 in a row. Well, give him 6 for the next 6 years running.
Yeah.
Trump gets Nobel Peace Prize. That'd make him happy, Yeah, so, I mean, we're kind of joking about it and stuff, but it's kind of sad that that we have to deal with this.
Yeah.
And, we were all just, for the whole Trump business, and when he came on the scene, we were kind of initially a bit skeptical. Then we supported him basically because, and really the only reason was that he seemed to be anti-war.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't like. He was for, reducing America's warmongering footprint in the world, which he kind of did in his first term. At least he didn't start any wars, so we're happy enough for that. And all the other stuff we would let slide because at the end of the day, that's what's most important, at least for people in the rest of the world. It really is the most important thing for Americans as well. They just don't understand it,
Yeah.
But given America is the faltering, has been the hegemon for a long time and is now kind of faltering, obviously, but and with the biggest military and military bases all around the world and 10 aircraft carriers and all that kind of stuff, it poses a direct threat to the whole world, different countries, and that's been shown by the whole war on terror and the wars beforehand, etc. And particularly since in the war, the so-called war on terror, since 9/11, there's an egregious and illegal use of American military power in the world, and people after by time Trump comes along, it's 15 years later. Anybody with any sense wanted to see an end to that.
Mm-hmm.
So Trump promising that or appearing to be of that nature, I think warranted support. And all the other things kind of paled into insignificance in comparison with that, And it should have been the case. That should have been the perspective of most Americans as well. Maybe it was for a lot of Americans, because America's warmongering around the world is not good for anybody.
Mm-hmm.
Not even, obviously not for the people who are warmongered against, the countries that are attacking stuff, but it's not good ultimately for America either. So that's really the main issue, and like it should be on people's minds,
Yeah.
But now in a second term, I mean, he still seems to be talking about peace. As you saw, he just solved. He made peace in six different areas of the world, 6 conflict zones, supposedly. So he's still at least putting up a good show of being a peacemongery president, rather than a warmongery president.
Mm-hmm.
Although and then you can even give him a pass on Iran because it was just a minimal
Mm-hmm.
kind of big beautiful bombs
Yeah.
for 12 days with Israel. And since then, well, yeah. So far he hasn't officially started any wars. You can't really call okay. Yeah. It wasn't a war.
No.
It was an attack on Iran, but it was like he was very clear, just doing the big beautiful bombs. Going to get lots of credit for it for me, and then it's over, and everybody goes back home and stays quiet.
Yeah.
That's what's happened so far. Who knows what's brewing in the background, but that's what's happened so far. Obviously, you can't really accuse him of being responsible for the Israel-Palestine situation, although he is responsible for facilitating it, and the turn it's taken over the past couple of years. And even his statements. I mean, this week you saw a statement in response to
Medvedev.
Yeah. Well, it actually started with Lindsey Graham, with Medvedev throwing shade at Lindsey Graham, calling him a grandpa and stuff like that, and to go home and watch himself and stuff. I don't know. I don't think he made any direct threats. He just called him names and made fun of him, basically.
Yeah.
And then Lindsay, Southern gentleman Lindsay, obvious closet homosexual,
that he is,
threatened Medvedev by basically said he needs to watch what he says, or basically made a threat against him, and in response, we probably have it here. Do you have it? No. I have it here, I think.
Which one?
What Lindsey Graham said
to those in
to Medvedev,
Russia.
To Medvedev.
Yeah. You got it?
No, do you?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Okay, Those. So he's. I think this came later though, didn't it?
Let's see.
There's a previous one.
The one where Lindsey Graham is quoting Trump. You're overplaying your hand.
No, that's later. So it goes back. It goes back a bit further than that, and it's basically where Lindsey Graham. Maybe I'll look up. It'll be under Medvedev. It goes back a long time. So it must be in response to him. Anyway, basically what he said was that Lindsey Graham told him to watch what he says, basically, threatened him, he needs to be careful.
Mm-hmm.
Not in a way like just be careful what you say, but you need to be careful, like it implied, you could be your life could be in danger type thing. And Medvedev responded by saying, making a reference to Dead Man's Switch.
Yeah, that one.
And that's what then made Trump scared. He called him Grimes. He said it's not for you or Trump to dictate when to get at the peace table. This is Medvedev saying to Lindsey Graham, it's not for you or Trump to dictate when to get at the peace table. Negotiations will end when all the objectives of our military operation have been achieved. Work in America first, Gramps. That was Medvedev in response to Lindsey Graham, and then Lindsey Graham responded to him by saying, he better watch what he says. Which is, sounds like a kind of like a schoolyard kind of threat,
Mm-hmm.
And in response, Medvedev made reference to a Dead Man Switch, which is the idea of just kind of nuclear. Not only, but in this case, it would be refer to nuclear weapons, where if you do something that threatens Russia's existence, which I presume, if or was some kind of an egregious attack on Russia, which I assume would be is understood as, killing Medvedev or something like that, then America would be nuked. Yeah.
But it also has I can't remember. I can't find it. But I remember it, and it wasn't worded as a Dead Man Switch. It was something along those lines, though. And the way that the reference comes across, it's a bit of a play on words, because obviously there's the obvious nuclear implications for it, but at the same time, considering the things that have been going on recently with
it's not Dead Man Switch, Dead Hand.
That's it. What's been going on with the Epstein files and the obvious implication for like why Epstein was removed from the board and wasn't really and the whole thing has been hushed up, is because there is similarly something there that if you go too far here, it's mutually assured destruction.
Yeah.
And so it's a bit clever in Medvedev's, for Medvedev to have referred to it in that way, because it has, that obvious double meaning, because it's not just like we can nuke you too, but also like the stuff that you aren't talking about, they probably know.
Yeah. For sure, yeah. Because Trump had referred to the dead economies. He called Russian and India's economies dead economies. And Medvedev actually responded by saying, if certain words from a Russian president trigger such a nervous reaction, Russia is entirely right. Trump's dead economy. Let him recall his favorite films about the walking dead and the danger of the dead hand.
Yeah.
So that it's basically him saying the danger of the dead quote, and he put it in quotes, the dead hand. That provoked Trump to say, to write on Truth Social, this, which is, jeez, it's such schoolyard bullshit. He wrote, based on the highly provocative statements of the former president of Russia, Dmitry Medvedev, who is now the deputy chairman of the Security Council of the Russian Federation, I have ordered 2 nuclear submarines to be positioned in the appropriate regions. Just in case these foolish and inflammatory statements are more than just that. Words are very important and can often lead to unintended consequences. I hope this will not be one of those instances. Thank you for listening. So words are very important according to Trump. The man who uses words, in fact, the man who makes up words, doesn't just use them out of context or use them freely and inappropriately often. At times he makes up words as well. To him, there's a guy accusing others, reminding others that words are very important. So yeah. So it's basically him saying, Dmitry Medvedev saying the dead hand, the infamous dead hand, and that's understood to be, obviously, I think that's why I interpret it as like the dead hand, dead man switch or dead hand switch, whatever. Idea being like, it's the classic thing in the movies, right, of the guy holding a grenade.
Yeah.
And he's holding the pin down. If you shoot him,
he drops a grenade
or
and
holding
you
a
die.
bomb,
Yeah.
or holding his hand on the trigger to a bomb.
It's already on the trigger. If he releases it,
if you
goes
shoot
off.
him, it goes off.
Yeah.
Basically. So that's what I was interpreting. But then again, the farce continues with Trump responding in this way, and then also the farcical aspect of Trump's response that we just read there is that he obviously doesn't understand anything about America's nuclear forces, right? Basically, he doesn't understand. I'm assuming it extends to the whole nuclear triad, because like the nuclear triad is a land-based ICBMs, submarine ones, submarine-based nuclear weapons, and bombers. So land, sea, and air. That's the nuclear triad, right? And the idea being that probably the sneakiest are the most. The ones that provide the most security for any country with nuclear weapons is submarines, because they're less easily identified where they are. They're moving around all the time and stuff. You can move your bombers around, I suppose, but they're more easily tracked. And obviously your silos, your specific places where you have your nuclear arsenals, they're well known, right? You can't move those easily, right? So that particularly the submarines, the point of the submarines, nuclear, as part of the nuclear triad, the nuclear SLBMs, submarine launched ballistic missiles. The idea is that they're out. They have to be effective, to be useful at all. They have to be actually out in the strategic areas all the time. They already have to be in a position at a ready status all the time in case of some unexpected nuclear conflict, right? So they have to be in the place. And so America's primary enemy, at least one of two, would be Russia and China. Maybe primarily right now Russia, in terms of any potential nuclear attack. Yeah. So America's nuclear powered submarines, and with nuclear weapons on them, would by definition already be in a position where they're able
in a strategic area.
Yes. But Trump decided to send them there in response to what Medvedev said. And then so the message received by the captain of the America's nuclear submarines would be, all right, so we just stay where we are then. There's new orders from the president. You're going to deploy to exactly where you are right now.
To exactly 1 meter in front of you.
Yes, move 1 meter further to Russia. That'll show that, Medvedev. And I was like, oh, God. So, yeah, we have to suffer through this bullshit, and that's what's annoying about Trump. I mean, I suppose there's pros and cons. If you want to, if you're ever going, if you want a president, an American president who hadn't bowed down or paid, given up any power or any responsibility to the deep state, like most other presidents have done the last 70 or 80 years. Let them run the show and just act as a ceremonial function, which is what most American presidents have been. If you want a president who wasn't like that and had actually took back some of the powers or exercised some of the powers of the office of the president, became the quote unquote commander in chief and all kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I suppose it was too much to ask that it would actually be a kind of a more sensible, stable, normal kind of person. You know what I mean? Like
the last chance for that was RFK,
right,
and
and that's what happened.
Yeah.
So you take what you can get, right? So I don't know, but it's still difficult. It's just disappointing. So yeah, that's the bullshit. Part of the bullshit that's been going down for the past week, and I'm sure no one's surprised to hear it. Trump also talked. I mean, I know it's an ongoing saga, but he also talked about Epstein, which, as I said, is an ongoing saga. He mentioned oh yeah, and well, just in that part about the this is, I mean, again, so we'll just follow to its logical conclusion, right? So Trump sends the nuclear capable submarines, the SLBMs, to wherever, to shirt front Russia. And then he's asked about it, obviously, and this is what he said.
Well, you just have to read what he said. He was talking about nuclear. When you talk about nuclear, we have to be prepared, and we're totally prepared.
So there you go. The reporter asked Trump, "What did Medvedev say to you that made you really mad?" What did Batman say to you that made you mad? Tell us, little Donnie. Show me on this doll where he hurt you. And
right here in the fields.
Right here in my fields. Well, he said you just have to read what he said. He talked about nuclear. Literally what he said is what we just said. He said the only thing that possibly referred to nuclear was the infamous dead hand. Okay. So that means talking about nuclear. And Trump ended up by saying there that we're totally prepared for nuclear war. But like I said, and just, it kind of occurred to me, but you're not prepared to release the Epstein files, apparently. Ready for nuclear war?
Yeah.
We'll go any moment. We'll have some nuclear war.
We'll all get blown up.
But you ain't getting those...
yeah. But you ain't going to learn shit about them pedophiles.
You aren't getting those Epstein files because, again, what's his reasoning? His reasoning has been, he said it on a few occasions, the problem is that there are maybe names in there that you have to protect people, basically. There may be names in there that are innocent people. Now, I suppose that's potentially true. But surely you should be in the process rather than turn around and saying, what Epstein files? Let's move on. Stop talking about Epstein. You say we're working to remove the names of people who are innocent, and we will then. But like we said before, it's a much bigger issue. Like because it's more than just a list of names, right? I mean, the implications of the whole thing go way deeper than just a list of names, and that's a limited hangout where he's just saying, oh, it's just because there's maybe some innocent names in there, so we can't release them. So let's move on. Well, there's no. I mean, obviously, if that were the only problem, you would say that, and you would. Well, he has said that, but then you'd commit to releasing the incriminating evidence or the evidence of wrongdoing, etc. have a listen here. I'm not sure where he says, but have a listen to this. This is him talking about Epstein again about the Epstein files. We'll just break it down here as it goes along. Go ahead.
You have not been briefed on the Epstein files, or your name has not appeared in the Epstein files. But doesn't the AG have to tell you if your name is in the files?
I haven't been overly interested in it. It's a hoax that's been built up way beyond proportion. I can say this: those files were run by the worst scum on earth. They were run by Comey. They were run by Garland. They were run by Biden and all of the people that actually ran the government, including the auto pen. Those files were run for 4 years by those people. If they had anything, I assume they would have released it. The whole thing is a hoax.
Just pause.
They ran the files.
So the problem here is that he's saying he's again focused on the idea that this is a hoax, like the Russia hoax, which he's made the comparison with the Russia hoax. And that's just more of the same, that this is just in the same vein as the Russia hoax. They're just making stuff up. And that's because he, over the past, 6-7 weeks or whatever, since it's really gained traction on social media and then in the media, the kind of quote unquote anti-Trump media have taken it up and started pointing to releasing images and all this kind of stuff of Trump with Epstein and trying to focus it on Trump. So here's Trump's people wanting the Epstein files released. They say, okay, let's talk about the Epstein files, but mainly in relation to Trump. Let's see if we can put him front and center in it. Yeah. So then he sees that and immediately all he can think of is that this is just another hoax, right? I mean, he must know more than that, but that's what he's focusing on, that this is a hoax, and he's trying to tell people his base. He's trying to tell his base, look, this is another Russia collusion hoax, because he's fixated on the idea that he's being implicated, he's being accused of being associated with Epstein. When he, I mean, his advisors or whoever are telling him, I find it bizarre that they haven't actually told him, look, Mr. President, this isn't why your base are actually. You seem to be, Mr. President, you seem to be under the impression that the only reason your base are talking about Epstein and the Epstein files and releasing the Epstein files is because they've been encouraged to do that by the Biden Democrat gang in order to smear you. And your base are so stupid that they can't even see that they're falling into a trap of getting of a Democrat trap to try and get the Epstein files released, which will then be used against you. And it's like, no, that's not what's actually happening. At least, most of the people who are most vociferous about having the Epstein file released have followed this for quite a long time. It goes way beyond 4 years. Obviously, it goes back into Epstein's history, like we've talked about in previous shows and all that kind of stuff, back into the, you can back to the fucking 1970s if you want to, you know what I mean? Now it's about the possibility of Epstein being part of an Israeli kind of pedophile blackmail ring, basically, and part of effectively an extension of the Israeli lobby in the US, the kind of black ops Israeli lobby in the US that has been going on for a very long time, and they want to know. They see it as potentially evidence of that, and in that way, the subversion of American power and American independence by Israel, and they want it exposed for that reason. They know Epstein was an Israeli, effectively Israeli. He was American, okay, but he's tied to Israeli intelligence, worked for Israeli intelligence, and was working for them to advance Israeli interests in America and over American politicians, and they want to know who have been compromised by that. They want to know which Americans took the bait and were involved in child abuse or trafficking or all that kind of stuff, so that they can get rid of them and restore some independence to American politics under Trump, away from Israeli influence. That's why. So does he not know that? It's so obvious. Like, I mean, that's just like the 101. Anybody who just like looks quickly at the Epstein situation draws that conclusion. That's what's actually going on. Yeah. But Trump is oblivious to it, apparently, or he's pretending to be oblivious to it. So, but anyway, I don't know if we need to. It's like another few minutes here. But in this video that we just listened to, he makes a comment. Well, maybe play a little bit more and see if it's see if there's.
I was running against somebody that ran the files.
files.
They can easily put something in the files
There
that's
you
a
go.
phony. Like, as an example, Christopher Steele, a person you know well, happens to be from your country. But Christopher Steele, as an example, wrote a book, a dossier. We call it the fake news dossier.
Okay, you can pause
And
there.
the whole thing.
So you go on with Christopher Steele, that's the Russia collusion hoax and stuff.
Yeah.
But the important point there is that he said, and again, you have to like listen to what Trump is saying, not because he's making any sense, generally, just usually because he isn't making sense. That's why you have to listen to it closely. And now and again, he says something that actually may reveal what he is actually trying to say, but it's so garbled in Trump speak that you miss it. He said that they may put stuff in there. But, and again, he's saying this in context of this being a hoax and a smear campaign against him.
Yeah.
So what that says to me is that his main concern, although he can't admit it, the main reason why he wants to dismiss the Epstein files is because of his concern that, as he said there, stuff can be inserted into the Epstein files that is false,
Yeah.
but that would appear to be true or real, and that would directly implicate him. So he's terrified of. But the only reason he would be terrified of that, or really afraid of that happening, and not want to release the Epstein files because of that, is the only reason that he would be saying that is if he doesn't have any access to the files.
Yeah. If he
The
can't
real
look at it
files.
and
If
know.
he personally can't look at them, he and even the FBI and the Justice Department don't have. Because he said these other people, Comey and Biden and whoever else, whatever, they ran the files for 4 years. So are you saying that there could be, basically, no one just handed these files over? This is if it's we think it is true. What was said is that it's basically an Israeli blackmail spying operation run by Epstein and others for a very long time. Then there's a long history there and probably a vast amount of data that's collected and held in secret places type thing. And Comey and Biden under the Biden administration or whoever in the FBI ran these files, but only the surface files, let's say, or only a minimal amount of them. They didn't have all the full access to them. And someone else, like in the kind of quote unquote deep state, Israeli lobby, Israeli intelligence spying types, they have the information. They have all the real data, and they're not going to release it. They're not giving it to anybody.
Yeah.
But they could release information or could pass information to the media that would either be actually expose Trump if Trump was involved, which I don't think he was in any particularly bad way with Epstein, but that Trump knows that they could be manipulated and data could be put in there to smear him. And it all it takes is a smear. It all it takes is like something to look, at least on first glance, as being real.
Well, and that's why he was
to be
talking
done,
about, and that's why I was talking about Steele, because
that's what happened.
It was utterly absurd from start to finish.
Yeah.
Anyone who took one look at it, like not even like a real, hard look at it, you just glance at the thing, and it's obviously bull crap.
But because it was amplified by the media,
exactly.
Then
So
and Trump's gone through that, you know what I mean? So he's traumatized by it, basically, right?
Yeah.
So he's terrified of it happening again. He knows the insidious nature of these kind of networks behind the scenes and what they can do because he's experienced, and he's worried that's going to happen again with these Epstein files. So he says, look, it'd be nice if we could have some truth about the Epstein files, but this goes way deeper than anybody understands. It's way beyond anything that he can get access to. There are these ramified or, integrated networks that have been operating in the US for a very long time, and he has no control over them, so it's best if we just move on and get on with our MAGA.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but there's not going to be, that kind of justice because he can't provide it.
Yeah. Which in its own like Trumpian way is like as honest about it as you can get.
Yeah.
It's like that. Once you break it down, obviously, it's way more honest to take than anything anyone has said before then, which is that a whole bunch of crap. But here he's like, this is we're never going to get anything from this. It's only going to cause problems. Leave it alone.
Right. Exactly. And that's the power of the deep state.
Yeah.
That, people still refuse to recognize or admit or accept, actually, you know, accept it for what it is, despite all the evidence.
Well, or the other way of looking at it is Trump needs to embrace it in the sense of crown yourself emperor and just go for it. He's going to have a lot of people supporting him if he does it. Because it's like either you don't do anything and you get nowhere, or you go,
Yeah.
pedal to the metal.
Yeah. Look, I think what people have to accept about Trump is that, what actually reminds me of is there's a thing that's been around for quite a long time in business where they're not exactly, they're kind of like auditors or whatever, but rather, if a company is in financial trouble, the management of that company can bring in external
Outside consultants.
business consultants to
Yeah.
basically restructure and look at the company, look at its bottom line, look at all the different ways that it's functioning and stuff, and identify all the flaws and all the problems, and then retool the whole thing to make it profitable again. They're given like a year or 2 years, whatever, to do this and turn the company around and make it profitable again, because it's been losing. I think that's basically what Trump is for America. That's his skill set, let's say, at least as he sees it. He's a businessman, and in his mind, he's come in to turn the American economy around, and that's his job. And all the rest can fuck that. He's not interested.
Yeah, no,
that's not his, not within his remit. Like, basically, you know what I mean? As he sees it. So it really does mean that there's not really any real change. There's not really a change, or not really any chance of people getting what they think they're going to get from Trump. That's not, and he's getting on. He's not spring chicken anymore. It's business as usual. The people who've been running America for a very long time are still running America. The spotlight. They're the obvious. They're the obvious. They're present. Let's say the deep staters, the career bureaucrats who run America from behind the scenes and have done for a very long time, including in Congress and in the intel agencies and Justice Department, etc. They've kind of taken a backseat to some extent, but really only from an economic point of view, and also because Trump has stolen that show in a certain sense. He's like Trump's trying to steal back control of America by bluff and bluster and bravado. By getting out there and shouting and doing stuff, and basically, you notice what he's focused on: tariffs. That's all it's tariffs and sanctions. He's fully focused on the economics. But behind the scenes, all the other machinery of government and all that kind of stuff is still being effectively run from behind the scenes by the people who always did it. The only thing they've given up is that front man appearance. And Trump is, to some extent, he's obviously doing more than than the other ceremonial heads of state known as presidents beforehand, Biden and Obama and Bush and all that kind of stuff. He's doing more than them. He's not just being a ceremonial head of state, but the only thing he can really take control of, and he has any ability to take control of, is the economic factors. And he's allowed to do that.
Yeah. It's not mentioned a whole lot, but there is, for example, what was it, like hundreds of appointments that Trump is supposed to have made. Trump appointments that he wants, and like he's given the list, and he's like, these are the people that I want for these positions, and there's hundreds of people who still haven't been confirmed yet.
Right.
So it's not like he even has his full team behind him yet.
Right. He'll get the last one in on the last day in office.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's a
Which
joke.
It's exactly like the last time.
Right, but that's the nature of of government
Whereas
as well.
Autopin Biden,
Mm.
as Trump is now calling him, like all of his appointments are done and dusted in a couple of months.
Right.
It's like not even a comparison.
Yeah. Because those were people that were already known, already in the system, and that's a revolving door type thing.
Yeah.
They're coming in from previous administrations, or they're appointees from well-known government agencies and all that kind of stuff, and or the well-known people are from from government agencies. But it's the problem of, like we talked about before, the idea that the silly idea that people have where somebody, a new administration, new president or prime minister or whatever, can come in every 4 or 5 years and totally turn everything upside down.
The children's understanding of how democracy works, when you're told in school, we have a wonderful democracy where every 4 years the president gets to nominate all these people,
and they do something totally different
like,
from the last guy.
Wow, we have such a great system here.
Yeah,
but like that's how
not
you
how
tell children how it works.
Yeah. And in fact, the way it obviously works is where you have, like we said, career bureaucrats who run the country for a very long time, and a deep state behind it that runs the country effectively. And sure, they allow different, with the new administration, different change of faces in different places. But like I said, for the most part, those are people who are not going to rock the boat, and they're just going to go. They go in and they're basically told what to do.
Yeah.
They don't come in and start making policies and shaking things up and all that kind of stuff. No. They're basically they're just there to do a job, and they're functionaries. Mm-hmm. But there's people behind them who have been, like, bring them into the office and say, so here, you're new to this job. Yeah. Well, here's what you'll be doing. As secretary of whatever, this is what you'll be doing.
Here's how we do things.
Here's how we do things around here. And then you go like, and who are you exactly? And you don't get elected? No, I don't elect. And I've been here for quite a long time. And here's how we do things around here. Okay, I'll go along with that. Because you have to, because that's how the country run, right? So it's like, that's how you run. That's the only way you can run the country effectively. But the problem is that you have pretty nasty people running the country behind the scenes. Trump comes in, so the idea that that's all going to be turned over. You're going to dig all those people out, like you're talking about, probably tens of thousands of people. You're going to root them all out and replace them with people who have no idea what they're doing. Like, you know what I mean? And you're going to run the country that way. No, you're going to crash the country.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, Israel.
Yeah.
There's signs and symptoms, signs and portents, which you would hope at this point that there would be something along this line would be actually happening, where people are starting to speak out a little bit more about, and not just ordinary people, because there's been plenty of protests over the past, well, for a very long time, but there's been pro-Palestinian, anti-Israel protests for quite a long time, and over the last couple of years since Israel started destroying Gaza, there have been more and more protests. But just in the last week, even really, we've had who was it? France? Did France start with it? Start with we're going to recognize.
Yeah, the first one was France.
We're going to recognize Palestine in September at the UN. Then Germany, I think. Then
Starmer.
Starmer. Then Germany. Then Malta, of all places. Then Portugal, I think, or Canada. Then Portugal. So bit by bit, they're all kind of like, they've all got a time frame where they're all going to jump on board. It seems that this is a thing that most of them have signed up to. And obviously this puts pressure on Israel because, well, it's kind of symbolic, obviously, because, it's trying to stop. It comes in the immediate aftermath of statements from within the Israeli government, and actually a non-binding resolution passed in the Israeli parliament that got a majority support, a good majority support, but again non-binding, to annex the West Bank to Israel.
Yeah.
So that that obviously would make, and then there's also talking at the same time about annexing parts of Gaza, and ultimately obviously all of Gaza, which means that there is no Palestine state to recognize, Yeah. So the fact that these countries have come out and said that is a last ditch, pathetic, really. attempt to prevent the Israelis from, annexing the West Bank because it wouldn't be recognized internationally. I mean, I'm assuming September is only a month away, so I don't think the Israelis will have time to actually physically annex the West Bank with
Yeah.
with 2 or 3 million Palestinians.
But what's the thing? What's the what's his name from Canada?
Yeah,
Carney.
Yeah,
Carney, Starmer, Macron. These are not good people.
no, they haven't done anything.
They don't care. They haven't done anything this whole time.
Right.
So when these kinds of things come up, and all of a sudden, all of these countries who never cared before, I mean, maybe they made like blanket statements like, "Oh, this is very naughty
Yeah.
of the Israelis," while at the same time they're like, "We have to give more and more bombs to Ukraine."
Mm-hmm.
y- Obviously, the idea of them doing this out of the
Goodness of their
goodness
hearts.
of their hearts is total crap.
Right.
So my question that I've tried to, I mean, I haven't figured it
Trying
out
to
yet,
answer,
but
yeah.
tried to answer is why. I mean, are they trying to give the Israelis a time limit? Like you got to hurry this up. Kind of like what Trump has said before as well. But
I don't really think I don't think so. I mean, I don't know exactly why they at this point they wouldn't just go along with the whole.
Yeah.
I mean, they've obviously shown themselves to be complete cucks to
Yeah.
Israel. Israel calls the shots. They can't do anything against Israel. They're terrified of doing anything against Israel because of Epstein-like networks, I suppose, and other factors that the Israelis have over them.
Mm-hmm.
But this is the most they can do, at least to almost maybe save face with their populations. Because like in Europe, there's a lot of a big majority of the populations of most European countries are, when it comes down to it, are anti-Israel and pro-Palestinian. Because they've seen it for a very long time. It's been in, most of the governments in Europe and Western Europe are left leaning and have been left leaning for a long time. So they've been historically pro-Palestinian.
Mm-hmm.
Because Europe's all about peace and love and anti-colonialism and decolonization, at least officially. That's the general sentiment of most people in Europe. Let's say it has been traditionally, and it's been quite strong. That sentiment has been quite strong. To the detriment of, let's say, conservative values. Let's say.
Yeah.
So there's a long-term history of passive, active, but mostly passive, but certainly existing of pro-Palestinian, anti-Israel sentiment. So I think they have an eye on public opinion when they're doing this. Basically, it's too little, too late, obviously, but
Yeah.
they're trying to show that they're not complete cocks to Israel, what they are, by doing something that is kind of insignificant, but it's symbolic, but but largely insignificant. It won't do anything to stop the Israelis. It'll just embolden them, because the only thing you do to stop the Israelis is you stop giving them weapons or you sanction them. That's what they should be doing, right? If you really care about the Palestinians and really didn't like what they're doing, that's what you do. You'd stop providing weapons to them and you'd sanction them.
BDS.
Right. But the best they can do, even though the Israelis, scream bloody murder when these countries have made these statements about recognizing Palestine as a full state, the most they can do is do that as a way to try to prevent the Israelis from annexing the West Bank. Because what would happen? Well, if Palestine is recognized as a
member state or something,
as a sovereign state, then there'd be more options, let's say, for condemning them along international law lines and all that kind of stuff, which up to this point have been kind of vague because of the status of Palestine and Gaza. So I think that's basically what they're doing. That's the most they can do. But still, you notice that because the Israelis aren't getting full and unequivocal
support,
obedience and support from these countries, that they're still, calling them Nazis and Nazi supporters. And one of the Israeli foreign minister this week or whatever, accused, because Germany signed on as well, and
Mhm.
he said once again the Germany has Germany is now has turned Nazi again against the Jews. Basically, he
Yeah.
basically said, Germany has just been thrown back 80 years to 1942. Because of making this statement of recognizing Palestine as a state, which is construed as supporting Hamas, who are obviously the exact same as the Nazis because they want to kill all the Jews. That's your narrative right there. And it's super obvious to everybody, right? Apparently.
Yep.
But there's been there's a lot of pushback. There's a lot of protests. There's protests in. My brother actually went to one in New Zealand during the week, and there was a big protest
in Sydney
yesterday in Sydney on Sydney Harbour Bridge. Pro-Palestinian, anti-Israel. There's a poll came out. Was published. Not just one poll, but a collection of various polls. Oh, that was just to myself. Surveys and polls from multiple polling institutions have recently revealed that Israel is by far the most disliked country in the world, with support hitting new all-time lows in Europe and the United States with every survey. For the first time, a majority of Americans have an unfavorable view of Israeli Prime Minister, and I added international fugitive Benjamin Netanyahu, which he is. Officially, he is. He's wanted by the International Criminal Court for. Among age groups, just 9% of Americans aged 1834 approve of Israel's genocide in Gaza. Even among people aged 55 and older, which is the boomers, which are usually steadfast, diehard, support has fallen below 50%. And there's just some graphs there that show that. And there's also, I don't, CNN's a bit dodgy to ever, really. Sometimes you can glean something useful from CNN, but just on this point, obviously they gather together some data and all this kind of stuff. But actually, on this article, if you just look at it, it's pro-Israel Democrats try breaking with Netanyahu to stop the party's shift amid Gaza crisis. So basically, what the point is that the Democrats are all they're all flustered because with
they're between a rock and a hard place because
the upcoming or the next year's what do you call them,
the midterm
elections and all that kind of stuff, and the Republicans have it easier where they're like, we support Israel because Yahweh and Christianity and Judaism, Judeo-Christian, and we love Israel and we always have loved Israel, and that's it. So that's our position. So the Democrats are meant to be left-leaning, so they're meant to be against the kind of colonialist maneuvers of Israel and what it's doing in Palestine and genocide and all that kind of stuff. So they should be quite clearly on the other side, but they can't be because they have to be pro-Israel, right? So they're like, so Democrat voters are kind of like who would be not liking what they're seeing in Gaza and turning against Israel. They look to the Democrat Party or Democrat candidates, and they want a clear message from them that you're on the right side on this one. And the Democrats are being mealy-mouthed about it and speaking out of both sides because they can't. He basically at the end of that article, he kind of sums it up. If you just put it back up, this very last paragraph at the very bottom, Democrats have a tougher line simply because Republicans say we're all in with Israel, so people know either go or leave. Whereas people get angrier at Democrats. This guy said, I think you can be a Zionist and critical of the government of Israel. I don't think those things are in conflict. And the reason I think that is because that's his personal opinion. So it's kind of funny because if you go look up Sanders, search for Sanders there. Bernie's obviously been pro-Palestinian or anti-Israel, at least. So he obviously Bernie Sanders opining on it, and he gives his usual thing, which is he's basically saying Israel can't be doing what it's doing, and he said asked whether that. So he basically said he thinks that his colleagues risk losing an authentic connection to voters if they don't rapidly change what they're doing and saying on Israel. Asked whether that risked Democrats being seen as anti-Israel, Sanders pointed out that he is Jewish himself. He said to be anti-Netanyahu, anti a right-wing racist extremist government, that's anti-Israel government. That's anti-Israel government, Sanders said. If you're against Trump, you're not against America. Which is kind of crazy because it's another one of these things that are these inane talking points that have been, this one in particular has been, repeated over and over again, which is like, and the Israeli lobby tries to pin you down on this. The Israeli supporters try to pin you down on this. Like, we know it's ridiculous. Like, all the anti-Semitism accusations are nonsense. Like, if you just, if you say one bad thing about a Jew anywhere, it means you want to kill all the Jews. That kind of thing. That kind of inane argumentation that makes no sense. But they make it anyway. Like, and this is the same one where it's like, don't you think? Do you think the Democrats are risking being seen as anti-Israel? And it's like, how is that even a question like that's brought up by supposedly intelligent, news reporters and commentators on CNN and all that kind of stuff? Like if you were in a studio and you said something, they say, "So you're anti-Israel." If you say you criticized Netanyahu, or the Netanyahu government, they would say, "So you're anti-Israel then, are you?" And it's like, are you really asking me that question? Are you serious about asking me that question? I mean, that's the most ridiculous thing for anybody, for an supposedly intelligent person to say. It's almost, it's like a retarded thing to say. It's like you have no brain power. It's like, I don't know, it's like, saying that if you criticize a serial killer, then that means you hate all humans.
Yeah.
It's like someone thinking that they could put that question to you as a serious question. And anybody who'd put that question to you, if you said, like, I'm against serial killers, and they said, so you hate all humans, that's what you're saying. You just look at them and go, I think you need
And it's also
a lobotomy.
like this weird,
what's wrong with you?
The weird, I don't know if gaslighting would be the right word for it, but it is along those lines where, they say these things. I'll use Ben Shapiro as an example, where anytime someone does something like that, he will say, something along those lines, right? But at the same time, when someone says, well, you never criticize Israel, he's like, I have plenty to say, plenty of criticisms against Israel. It's like, I think we should be doing, handing out 2 loaves of bread instead of 1. It's something totally inane and not at all to the point about what we're trying to discuss as far as the actual issue at hand. You're not.
They want to divert from it all the time.
Exactly. So it's like you're gaslighting me by saying that the problem isn't the problem, while at the same time saying that there is a problem. But the problem that you're saying is the problem is not the problem that I'm saying is the problem. But I'm also not allowed to say there's a problem, even though you just said there's a problem.
Because you'll condemn me for it.
Oh,
you condemn me as hating Jews for it. So they just try and stop you from talking about it. It's just an attempt to stop. And it's really crass and really in your face.
Yeah.
And they've done it so many times over and over again that everybody knows it. And I don't know if they know that everybody knows it, but they should. But maybe they're so stupid and so deluded they don't know. So they keep on saying it. They think it's a good argument. They keep on, but maybe they know it's a good argument because they know what they're doing, because they know that it just shuts people up. It's like, stop talking about that. Stop saying, it's like having like we talked about this last week about, like, we're all being blackmailed by Epstein in a certain sense. You know what I mean? There's a broader society-wide, to the extent that Epstein's organization and the people behind him and all that kind of stuff, and these really spying networks and intelligence operatives in the US have been for a long time, for many decades, have been operating within the US in order to ensure that there's no dissent against Israel, so that the Israelis, that the American government, successive American governments, and the whole deep state and all that kind of stuff, and the people, the population, all stay on song with supporting Israel. Well, to the extent that Israel's doing that, or to the extent that the Israelis are doing that via an Epstein network to the American political class, their spokespeople in the media and all that kind of stuff, and through the American media, are doing it to the population by telling them that they're kind of blackmailing them with anti-Semitism.
Yeah.
They don't have, like, pictures of every American, engaging in pedophilia or something like that, but they have the accusation of anti-Semitism.
You're having naughty thoughts about the
Over
Jews,
them.
aren't you?
You're hating the Jews, aren't you? You're secretly hating the Jews, and so you can't say anything that's anti-Israel against Israel at all. Otherwise, you'll be accused of being a Nazi. Because obviously, if you're an anti-Semite, then you're a Nazi.
Obviously.
So, yeah, it's a big, it's a very broad blackmail scheme that's been operating for a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what to do about it, other than not give in to it, basically.
Yeah. So, okay, if so it makes sense to me then why all of these governments are coming out and saying that they're going to, recognize a Palestinian state under certain conditions. There's always the conditions. It's not going to be like, we are going to do this no matter what. It's always with a condition and with a proviso. One of them, I think, for Macron and possibly Carney in Canada as well, was that Hamas has to be done away with. So the only way that they'll recognize it is if Hamas is not involved. But the problem is Hamas is not going to go away. So it's...
No, they know that. I mean, they know
that.
They've created a whole new generation of all the people of Gaza and all the people of the West Bank are much more likely now to, when the opportunity arises, to take up arms against Israel. Of course they would. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they know that. So that's why in these situations you always find governments and people engaged in these kind of policies of getting rid of our problem type thing, and in a certain sense why the Nazis did the same thing, is because they realized that once you start taking that kind of action against people, you're creating a new generation of resistance. Basically, you're emboldening the resistance. You're doing the opposite of what you seek to do. So you quickly realize that the only way to do this is in some kind of quote unquote final solution. Right? You need to get rid of them completely.
Mm-hmm.
And you come up with all sorts of different plans, and a lot of it's to do with we got to disperse them all around the world, right? We got to get them out. We got to remove them from this area and fracture them in all sorts of different ways so that they just disappear. I mean, the worst case scenario is we just kind of kill them all. In certain cases, that's been the case where they've just tried to kill all these people, but that's not very effective because you can't, at least in modern times, you can't really get away with that. Although we'll have to wait and see. In the case of Israel, they're certainly trying. But you realize that you have to go on. You have to follow through with with your plan here. It has to be total annihilation.
And the method that they've been using most recently, obviously, is the starvation method, starvation tactic.
Which is super crass. It's one way try and let it happen naturally, in a certain sense.
Naturally.
Naturally. And in a weird way, that's kind of what the Israelis find themselves right now in the same position, and it's largely similar, obviously different time and all kind of stuff, but and different place, but largely in the same position as the Nazis found themselves, with the Jews having embarked on this plan to get rid of their Jewish problem. They say, well, first of all, just ostracize them, and then round them up and put them in camps, and then but once you've denigrated them, and especially in the local population at the time in Nazi Germany and now in Israel, you've dehumanized the opposition. You have a much better chance of letting quote unquote nature take its course. Once you've put the right conditions in place, you can let quote unquote nature take its course. And in many cases, that's what happened in the concentration camps. For all the talk of gas chambers and all that kind of stuff, it was mostly through starvation that then led to disease that killed whatever number of the total number of Jews that died in concentration camps. I mean, of course, there was a lot of shooting, and there's a lot of shooting of Palestinians. Probably the number of Palestinians in Gaza that have been killed over the past, I would say, there's various numbers thrown around. The official, at least, number of known dead is 60,000. 70% of them women and children, from bombs and shooting. But there's vast numbers, probably as much again and more, who are missing under rubble. So you're talking upwards of probably more than 200. It could be up to 300,000 people.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of people that they've actually killed directly.
Yeah.
And then for the rest, once you've, you know, exhausted yourself or exhausted your resources to do that directly, well, then the natural, quote unquote, natural thing is to just let nature take its course, you know. In camps, and here in Gaza we have one big concentration camp, let's say, at this
More
point.
so now than any other time,
Right.
because of the whole, October 7th, never again on
Yeah.
October 7th, and we have to clean out Gaza of Hamas.
Right,
So,
right.
all right, everyone in Gaza, go down to the very bottom section, and we're just gonna bomb everything else
Right.
into oblivion.
Yeah, and then annex it and keep you out and see what happens and put pressure on the international community to do something about it, to do something with the results of what we have done to these people.
Yeah,
you know,
we're gonna
like
have
you're
to
responsible
pressure
for it,
the international community to deal with the repercussions of our
of our
actions.
barbarity,
So
of
it's
our
like,
brutality. Yeah.
like you have to take the refugees, like they're suffering.
Mm.
Why don't you care about their suffering?
Yeah.
And it's like,
how heartless
you're
are you?
doing this?
You're so heartless. You know, Netanyahu got up and say, it breaks my heart to see all those Palestinians left there by the international community to starve. But what's really cynical and funny about the whole thing, it's just kind of blows your mind in the sense that, you know, they talked about October 7th and they made reference to never again, and never again is the Holocaust.
Yeah.
But they use that phrase to justify doing again what they were saying never again, but just not to the Jews, to other people.
Yeah. No. So it really should have been never again to us.
Never again to us, but definitely to them.
But definitely again.
Because we've got a lot of, you know, revenge rage still going on, let's say, in our mindset and the way that we enculturated into our population into the Jews in general as we grow up, you know, about the Holocaust and how badly we're treated and those guys want to kill us and all that kind of stuff, and anti-Semitism, and everybody hates the Jews. They're going to do it again. You can imagine that would make a group of people kind of ill-disposed to whoever the easiest enemy was, if you know what I mean, of the non-Jewish population. But it's also very, I mean, the Western media, and, you know, you talk about, you know, anti-Semitic conspiracy theories and stuff like about, you know, Jews running the media and all this kind of stuff. Well, maybe they don't, maybe they do. But it's certainly true that a lot of the Western media have become infected with a very you know, an irrational, and almost self-defeating or self-destructive pro-Israel mindset. Whether or not it's being direct, like this is from the Telegraph. Like the Telegraph has a story out today. If you click on that picture, that's the actual headline, you know. So they put this out to try and, you know, this is propaganda. Hamas orders starving hostage to dig his own grave. So this is Eviatar David. His family have condemned the footage of him being used as a propaganda tool by the terror groups. This is the typical Daily Telegraph in the UK. And so they put that out there and they just let it fly, and then it goes off the front pages and people get the message supposedly. But like the idea that he's obviously in one of these Hamas tunnels and they present it as him digging his own grave. Like Hamas is going to actually make him dig a grave in one of their tunnels is nonsense, right? Like it's super. It's not even a meter wide type thing, and the idea that Hamas would bury people in their own tunnels that they use as their only way of is nonsense. And also the word starving. Those evil Hamas members are starving the hostages, right?
Yeah.
Meanwhile, a couple of million Palestinians on the surface of this tunnel are starving.
That's totally unrelated, Joe, and it's completely anti-Semitic for you to draw any kind of definitive conclusion and connection.
My question is, do you think the fact that this hostage does not have any food has anything to do in Gaza, has anything to do with the fact that the Israelis are not allowing food into Gaza? I mean, is there some way he could get food? Like, would they airdrop food into him?
Into the tunnel.
Into him? Because they know where So it's an example of crass bullshit propaganda from the media. And also, it's so cynical because they claim that Hamas uses him as a propaganda tool when those Israeli hostages, have been used as a propaganda tool by Israel from the very beginning.
What do you call this article?
Exactly, yeah. Exactly. So it's just so conversive and, you know, paramoralistic.
Yeah.
The messaging around this, and the Israelis have used the Israeli government, Netanyahu himself in particular, has used the hostages as justification to do what they've done in Gaza, while not giving a shit about the hostages.
Yeah.
Because they need the hostages to still be there in order to continue to bomb the shit out of Gaza. Because if all the hostages came back, then they'd have to stop bombing, and they don't want to stop bombing, because the whole point of this,
Yeah.
that began on October 7th, was to destroy Gaza and put in place a final solution for the Palestinian problem of Israel.
Like, that's what makes it so evil, is that you got your own people abducted so that you could justify killing them as well as everybody that took them.
Mm-hmm.
That is a level of evil that is beyond most people's comprehension.
Mm-hmm.
Like, most people don't understand.
Yeah, that someone would come up with that idea
and
implement it. Go through it, follow through it, yeah.
And like really give it thought, to really give it teeth.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't want to draw too many comparisons, but there's a guy called Joseph Goebbels. He was the head of the Nazi Germany's Ministry of Propaganda. I put forth a theory which has come to be known as, or commonly associated with, the expression of the big lie, and it's specifically what does he say? This himself as in talking in terms of propaganda. He says the broad masses of a nation are always more easily corrupted in the deeper strata of their emotional nature than consciously or voluntarily. So people can be corrupted at a deeper emotional level rather than just, you don't appeal to their thinking, you appeal to their emotions to lie to them. You can embed a lie in someone with emotional speech, or more so than logical or intellectual. He says, and thus in the primitive simplicity of their minds, they more readily fall victims to the big lie than the small lie. This answers your question, basically, as to why they would do it, or the thinking behind it. Strategists and propagandists think this way, since they themselves, ordinary people, often tell small lies in little matters, but would be ashamed to resort to large-scale falsehoods. It would never come into their heads to fabricate colossal untruths, and they would not believe others could have the impudence to distort the truth so infamously. Even though the facts which prove this to be so may be brought clearly to their minds, they will still doubt and waver, and will continue to think there may be some other explanation. For the grossly impudent lie always leaves traces behind it, even after it has been nailed down, a fact which is known to all expert liars in this world, and to all who conspire together in the art of lying. Yeah, he basically says in the big lie there's always a certain force of credibility, because basically you tell a big lie because it has more credibility, because people would never believe that you tell such a big lie. Well, nobody would ever say something. Do something, because a lie isn't just telling a lie; it can be doing something that it's and then explaining it in a way that is a lie, basically. Like a false flag operation, for example, is an example of a big lie. A self-inflicted wound, for example, is an example of a big lie. Where people would, what was his name, Jesse Smollett?
I was just thinking that.
You basically organize someone to attack you, or you attack yourself, or you bang your head against a wall, and then claim that someone attacked you, or point to someone, your enemy, someone who you want to demonize or attack, or you accuse them. False accusation, basically.
Yeah.
So it's not. It's pretty well known from a basic psychological perspective for kind of character disturbed or people, psychopathic type people, or people who are very malicious, malevolent, or Machiavellian would quickly think of this as a solution to their problem. They see they have a problem. They want to get that guy, but they don't have anything to justify getting him, or abusing him, or attacking him. So, well, they know that if you're a victim, then
you can justify
it. So how do I get myself to be a victim? So, and that's the thing, yeah. They would never do that, And that's been the answer to a lot of big conspiracy theories over the year, big claimed or alleged conspiracy theories, or over the years, is that from the average person, spoken implicitly or explicitly or implicitly, their response is they would never do that.
Yeah.
That's not. And then they come up with some, they try to rationalize it. For example, when people claim that 9/11 was an inside job, basically a self-inflicted wound in order to justify, like, America was attacked, therefore America gets to attack and achieve an agenda that it had planned. People say, well, first of all, they would never do that, and then, like, if they think about it, they go, but yeah, it's like that's too big, because too many people would be involved, and someone would have spoken out, or something. It would have leaked out. Someone would have said something. But then they forget that, like, for example, the Manhattan Project, the development of the nuclear bomb in America, happened. There's something like 30,000 people involved in it, and not one of them said a word about it, and there was no mention of it for I don't know how many years. It was several years it was going on, and all these people, scientists and all sorts of different people, were involved in the project in secret in America, and not for the rest of the population. They had absolutely no idea about it whatsoever.
Yeah.
Everybody stayed quiet. Anybody who knew stayed quiet, and so obviously that's not true either. Stuff can be done that in secret, and the population doesn't know about. On that point, actually, what do you call it? Kash Patel. You see the story, the thing about his wife, his girlfriend. People are accusing his girlfriend of being working for the Israelis.
Yeah.
For the Israeli intelligence, or that she's basically a honeypot, honey trap, and that she's why the Epstein files aren't being released. Alex Wilkins, and she's been on. She's come out and said that, denying that she is an Israeli agent.
That's what I heard. I heard her deny it.
Well, then it must be
true.
I mean, but the problem is that's what when Israel does the kind of things that it's doing, and there's Epstein and what the stuff in Gaza, and then Epstein and ties to Israeli intelligence and all that kind of stuff, people start noticing, or not necessarily noticing, but wondering. So, and there's a guy. Hang on, does she play it? What do you call that blonde chick used to be on? Used to be Megan Kelly. Used to be on. So, yeah, just go here and jump forward to get an idea of the claim. Megan Kelly interviews her, and sympathetic to her and all that kind of stuff. But jump forward to on that video. Jump forward to just about 50 seconds or so.
You, this gal who.
Bit back. Yeah, a bit more. Yeah, right about there. I'll do.
Assad spy, could be other spies. We cut just one in soundbite form, but there's so much more. Here's just a sample.
Is the director of the FBI caught up in an Israeli honeypot operation? All right, here's the context. Quote, some social media users have wondered whether the FBI and the U.S. Justice Department's refusal to release the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients could have something to do with Alexis Wilkins, the 26-year-old girlfriend of 45-year-old FBI Director Kash Patel. This is what people online are pointing to, the fact that Patel's girlfriend, Alexis Wilkins, works for PragerU, which is a media company that supposedly espouses American values, except for the fact that it is run by a former Israeli military intelligence officer. Now, I did a bunch of digging, and unfortunately, there's actually not a lot of public information to go off of in terms of Alexis Wilkins' background. Lived in England and Switzerland before settling in Fayetteville, Arkansas when she was 9. It also says that she attended Collège du Le Monde International School in Switzerland. Now, interestingly, ChatGPT is calling this a strange biographical gap in that she has no visible friend network or public high school college cohort interviews, which they say is unusual for a public figure in entertainment, and that if a Mossad asset were inserted early in life, these gaps would be precisely where you would hide alternate history or handler training. Anyway, I'm not sure what's true or what's not true, but evidently these are, quote, classic elements used in honeypot operations: soft power, ideological alignment, and sexual emotional entanglement.
Okay. Of course, she denies it, and
The
but she
only-
doesn't answer any of those questions about her history because she's like,
Yeah.
well, that's all private, so I'm not telling anything about what's going on. So,
Yeah.
whatever. But it's just an interesting example of where people are going with this, and it's all the Israelis have nobody to blame but themselves. But of course, they'll cry anti-Semitism because
Yeah.
like that saying that about Kash Patel, obviously it's extremely anti-Semitic, right?
Yeah. Obviously.
And it's interesting though, but because one of the points was that she works for PragerU. PragerU is this online university. It's a non-profit group, whatever, and it's associated with well, it's basically very much pro-Israel, and the CEO of it since 2009, actually for the last 15 years, is a woman called Marissa Straight. And she is a former Israeli army intelligence officer. You know what I mean? She's running PragerU, and PragerU's basically, at least today, what it does. One of the things it does is it's closely aligned with what do you call it? What do you call it? Little Ben Shapiro. What do you call his?
The Daily Wire?
Daily Wire.
Yeah.
And Dennis Prager, who is one of the founders of it as well. He's a conservative radio talk show host or whatever. But most recently you saw him in roundtable discussions. So this is PragerU, Dennis Prager, one of the founders of it, the current CEO is a former Israeli intelligence officer. And the outcome of that union, let's say, one example is a roundtable discussion with this guy, Dennis Prager, who's Jewish, obviously himself, sitting around a table with luminaries of the conservative movement, but particularly religious-oriented Jews. Like, I don't know if, well, I suppose Ben Shapiro's Jewish, but Jordan Peterson.
Mm-hmm.
So them all sitting around a table and discussing the Bible, and particularly with Jordan Peterson kind of leading because he's the big brain, right, and he's leading the discussion on it and charting, setting the direction of it. And of course, people who know what Jordan Peterson's about, he's all about tell the truth, be a good person, clean up your room. He's a very moral person, but he finds himself sitting around with these other people, including some Dennis Prager and other Jewish intellectuals, effectively discussing and cementing and propagandizing to the public, particularly the more maybe intellectual public who would follow people like Jordan Peterson, the strong ties between Israel and America, and more particularly the strong ties between the intricate or the inseparableness of Christianity and Judaism, which you can see how would be instrumental from and is really perspective if you were thinking about it long term and how to make sure that Americans, being a Christian country, stay on song with support for Israel. You would want to really promote the
Shape the intellectual discourse, yeah.
Yeah, you'd want to promote the inseparableness of Judaism and Christianity, because in that way, next downstream from that is the inseparableness of America and Israel.
Yeah.
Jordan Peterson, the big tool, is just sucking it up. Like, he's just
The
loving
big
it.
mushy brain.
Can't think his way out of a wet paper bag on that one. So the funny thing is, that's where people go with, Kash Patel's girlfriend, 26 years his junior. Honey Trap, Israeli, Mossad, Epstein, PragerU, CEO, former Israeli intelligence officer. Are you noticing?
Are you noticing yet?
Don't say Christ is king.
I'm not saying Christ is king.
Because that's the worst anti-Semitic.
I'm saying one could say Christ is king.
It's one of the worst anti-Semitic tropes. It's blood libel. Somehow it's blood libel. Because what you're really saying is that the Jews killed Jesus, aren't you? You're really saying that when you say Christ is king. That's what you're saying. And that's a blood libel.
Well,
because anything to do with blood and the Jews and Jesus and anything, it's all a bit stupid. All the news, kind of interesting bit of news popped up here today. Again, it just points to just how little access Trump has to anything, information of any quality, or has how little access he has to influence or power to do anything of any significance other than impose tariffs on people. U.S. Justice Department this week introduced classified evidence in the case against Ran Ruth. Now, Ran Ruth is this trampy-looking guy who was originally in Ukraine doing something to support the Ukrainian, military effort and to lobby America to send more weapons and people or whatever to fight the evil Russians. Popped up there for a while. And then he more famously attempted to assassinate Trump. He was arrested for trying to, fire some shots at Trump on golf course, I think.
Yeah.
Last year. So in the case against him, specifically in the case against him, because the only significant case against him is the attempt to assassinate Trump or the plot to assassinate Trump. The judge, Eileen Cannon, first of all, the Justice Department introduced classified evidence in the case against him, i.e., in dealing with his case and talking about the evidence against him, there was classified evidence that the judge sealed, stating that they could cause exceptionally grave damage to U.S. national security if made public. So here you have a guy who is one of two, was it 2 or 3 people?
Two.
Only two attempts?
Only 2. The third one wasn't real.
It wasn't real, it was just a thought.
Yeah.
So the guy who actually, tried to assassinate or planned, definitely
had the gun, was on the golf course, was trying
pointing
to,
it in his direction type thing.
Yeah.
So the guy who's being tried or prosecuted for attempting to assassinate Trump or planning to assassinate Trump while Trump is in office, Trump's Justice Department, let's say, with I assume appointees by him, is trying this guy, and there's been classified evidence introduced into the case that has been sealed and cannot be revealed publicly because it would cause exceptionally grave damage to U.S. national security. Do you think if you were Trump, you'd want to know what that is? I mean, do you think as Commander-in-Chief you would get to know what the materials? I mean, what could, your mind you can let your imagination run a little bit, but you can't go on too far because it would be within certain constraints, because you're talking about here a guy who tried to assassinate Trump, and what's his history? The idea is like, who's he working for? What would cause? This is some guy who just like hated Trump and got in a golf course and got a gun and pointed at Trump and was planning to shoot him. Should be an open and shut case, right? It was just crazy, orange man bad, Trump derangement syndrome.
Yeah, to the max.
So for her to seal, the judge to seal materials that would, if revealed, cause exceptionally grave damage to U.S. national security, that implies that what? It goes beyond just some Trump derangement syndrome. It suggests that there's bigger things going on around this guy and his attempted assassination of Trump.
The most like benign way of looking at it that I can think of is that it has something to do with the way that the Secret Service was managing Trump's security at the time, and it's revealing of some means or method that is like totally asinine.
Exceptionally grave damage to U.S. national security.
Again, this is the most benign thing that I can think of, and it's retarded. I know. Because I mean that's the question. And you asked two questions. One, would Trump want to know? I don't really know if he would. I mean, I would, but I'm not Trump. The other question you asked is, would he get to know? And
this is about someone who tried to assassinate you, and now you're the president, and there's Justice Department trying this guy. Surely you would kind of go, okay, so just for my own personal security type thing, my own personal safety. Can I? Because I'm thinking maybe that these classified materials that can't be revealed suggest that he had someone else. He had help. If it goes there, I'd like to know that, just so I know if that is not just him who is trying to assassinate me, that there are other people behind him. And also, I mean, the fact that it would cause exceptionally great damage to U.S. national security, does that mean maybe that it's someone within this country or someone within the establishment?
Mm-hmm.
The American establishment, the kind of deep state, or whatever, within some institutions of the U.S. government who were actually helping him to assassinate me, I can understand how if that would be revealed publicly, that it would could be construed as causing exceptionally grave damage to U.S. national security, because it would expose that there's a fifth column within the U.S. government who is trying to assassinate me, and that
not only did the intel agencies know about him and know about his whereabouts and knew what he was up to, but they deliberately decided not to do anything about it. As an example of something that would or potentially could be classified as causing exceptionally grave damage.
Or even worse was that, not worse, but there's that angle, but maybe given his history in Ukraine and him being shipped there probably by elements of the U.S. intel agencies and stuff, who are obviously organizing the weapons shipments and the training of Ukrainian troops and all that kind of stuff, and this guy was there as maybe part of that operation, and that he got hooked in with some Ukrainians basically in the Ukrainian government, and that last year, because of the way it was perceived that Trump's attitude towards Ukraine, that you had elements within the Ukrainian government who had like basically used this guy or set him up or encouraged him in some way to go and kill Trump on behalf of the Ukrainians. And if that were to be revealed publicly, then it'd be a massive outcry, and Trump would be forced to kind of basically just like cut all ties with Ukraine, because they had basically tried to assassinate him via proxy. And that would be pretty bad for American national security, because America needs to hold on to Ukraine and continue what it's been doing for the past few years with vis-a-vis Ukraine and Russia. So something along those lines, but it's kind of crazy that if it's one of those two things, or maybe another similar kind of element, that kind of stuff is just routinely covered up and nobody's allowed to know about it. It's just like, no, you can't know really important information that would probably dramatically change the way you perceive the world onto a more objective basis,
Yeah.
so that you could get a better understanding of how the world actually works. No, you're not allowed to know that.
It's
You
like
can't have that information because
the-
we don't want you, the people, having an objective understanding of how the world works.
It's like the 9/11 Commission,
Mm.
where they had interviewed Bush as well as Cheney, but they interviewed them off the record. It wasn't recorded, behind closed doors. So the like,
Yeah.
even though this is all supposed to be like on the up and up, and it's like he didn't know anything about it. He was just so talking to him about the events of the day and whatever. There shouldn't be anything there.
No, yeah. But it's secrecy is the defining characteristic of how governments, at least in the modern era, probably going back a long time, but increasingly so. It's just increased over the decades of in the past 100 years or more, whatever time frame you want to put on it. But certainly, it's reaching a kind of a climax at this point, where the secrecy is the defining aspect of how governments operate and what people perceive or understand about how governments actually operate is very, very far from the truth, and the only way you get evidence of that is by this kind of stuff being stuff that intimates something very very strange and suggesting that the way the world actually works, the way government works, and the way it operates is exactly the opposite of what people think. The only evidence you get of the truth of that is that any information about that is shut down.
It's like, and it's the way that it gets shut down that is suggestive of something and can give you some hints as to where it's coming from and why.
What's this term, national security, right? They've used that for a very long time. It's just
for
national
everything.
Security. It can cover. It's a broad brush,
Everything.
Whatever that whatever might in some way expose the actual workings of the government to the public is national security. Is a threat to national security, and has to be shut down.
And just to touch on one more point that I saw from Ryan Ruth, apparently some weeks ago, but it's only like just now coming out. He wrote a letter to the judge asking to be exchanged in a prisoner swap in order to he wanted to be sent to Russia or to Iran or to China in order to get
an American,
an American or a Ukrainian. Like he was asking to be sent to Siberia, like to be traded for a Ukrainian to be released, so that way he could still do good for.
Wow.
Like, so that tells you just how deranged this guy is, and how easily he could have been led to doing, what he attempted to do.
Right. Badly attempted to do,
yeah.
Yeah. And one more thing from the files of Trump has no fucking idea what he's doing or what he's talking about, and is getting dodgy information at the very least. He posted on Truth Social this week, yesterday actually. I have just been informed that almost 20,000 Russian soldiers died this month in the ridiculous war in Ukraine. Russia has lost 112,500 soldiers since the beginning of the year. That is a lot of unnecessary death. Ukraine, however, has also suffered greatly. They have lost approximately 8,000 soldiers since January 1st, and that number does not include their missing. Ukraine has also lost civilians, but in smaller numbers. Blah, blah, this is a war that should never happen. It's Biden's war, it's not my war. I'm subscribed to Seymour Hersh's Substack, and Seymour Hersh, from his inside sources, we're getting some kind of similar numbers, very disproportionately weighted against Russian soldiers. He published that, and he wrote about that in one of his second to last Substacks or something, and I actually responded to him and had a conversation with him about it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I've done it a few times on other things as well. He seems to be quite open to talking about stuff, and but I just say, like, that's. I mean, I'm kind of surprised that you would put that out there, because it's kind of it falls smack dab into the middle of like obvious war propaganda. Like, that's one of the first things you do in a conflict is you underestimate your deaths and overestimate the enemies, and that's what they've been doing consistently throughout the war in Ukraine. Russia's losing, Russia's losing, Russia's losing, Russia's losing all its tanks. Russia doesn't have any tanks. All Russia's
Pulling
planes have been
chips
shot
from
down.
the washing
They only have shovels left. It's just crass propaganda, you know. Like,
Yeah.
so you get 3 years of that, and it's stuff that's obviously, even to the average person, it's just like they're obviously just saying that just to try and throw shade at Russia. It's obviously not true. Like, they only have shovels, you know. They don't have any missiles. They only got shovels. They're stealing chips out of wash machines. So then and along with that, and this isn't the first time, but like when you see like 14 to 1, basically that's Trump saying Russian deaths to Ukrainian deaths are 14 to 1. Well, right off the bat, you go like, that's unlikely given the superiority of Russian military firepower. It's a war in their backyard. Ukraine's much smaller. They have a smaller army. They're being supplied from far away in terms of their supply lines. Russia has
Far bigger
massive
supplies.
factories and production, all that kind of stuff. It's very unlikely that you have such a disproportionate amount of deaths. But then you look at other factors, how other estimates throughout over the past few years have kind of, right from the beginning, kind of more objective, impartial, genuinely impartial assessments of it were more along the lines of 7 to 8 to 1 against the Ukrainians.
Yeah.
And then you look at the number of bodies that have been returned over the past couple of months. So they've had these body exchanges, deceased exchanges. Russia, I think, transferred something like 6 to 9,000 over a few occasions, and received a few dozen in return. But Trump feels like he can get on social and madly post that
the truth.
I have just been informed, and I don't question this person's opinion whatsoever. You know, they're completely objective. That.
Yeah. No. On the. If he had any inclination towards thinking for himself,
right,
he would be able to debunk that number quite easily.
But he doesn't have time, right?
Well, I mean,
to do that kind of stuff. That's why he has to rely on an advisor to collect this information. But there's people who
but that's the thing. Like, you don't even have to spend 12 hours in front of the computer doing all the things yourself. The thing is, you have to think about it just a little bit in order to ask the right questions.
Right.
And I think that's where the problem is he's not asking the right questions because this isn't it's not his forte.
Right. Well, you have to be informed to ask the right questions. To ask a good quality question, you have to know something about the topic, right? You can't ask a good quality question about any topic unless you're well enough informed about the actual topic. You know, there's a lot you might not know about it, but to ask the right question that'll get you more truth from an answer, you have to be able to have a good enough understanding of it, you know. And he obviously doesn't. But that just feeds into his narrative. Like, he wants a Nobel Peace Prize. He wants to end the Ukraine conflict. The Ukraine-Russia conflict, because he wants a Nobel Peace Prize. That's a big one, right? Because that's actually a real war that he would have, quote unquote, stopped.
Yeah.
There weren't all the other 6 weren't actually wars that he wants a Nobel Peace Prize, and he knows he's not getting a Nobel Peace Prize for stopping a war that didn't really start.
Yeah.
So, but Ukraine's a big one, like if because that's, if you're ever going to get a Nobel Peace Prize.
If he believes this, it makes so much sense as to why he's doing and saying the things that he's doing, and why he's continuing on as he has been. If he actually does genuinely believe what his advisors and informants and whoever are telling him, that it's a 14-to-1 ratio, they've got hundreds of thousands dead and they've only got 8. If you are the sitting president and these are the numbers that you're being given, and you have no reason to, even though you should have every reason to question everything about it, if you're not questioning it, then obviously things are in your favor, and you're going to be trying to bully Putin, even though,
if you had any understanding of war, you'd realize that those kind of casualty figures are not sustainable.
Yeah.
And that Russia would seriously be on the back foot, and that you should actually not want to stop the war. You should want that to keep going for a few months, because by the end of this year, then another 112,000 Russian soldiers would be dead, and it would just get to the point where it would be breaking point for the Russians. So it's in your favor. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, because then at that point you're talking about I mean, that figure of like 114,000, that's like, you're talking about 1% of the entire Russian population. That's when you're
Right.
In terms of like actually dead. You know, maybe it's 10%. Yeah, so it would be like 10% of 1%. But then injuries and injured,
Right.
you know, that's always like multiplied that
like
by.
times
And
3.
so if you're doing that by a couple of years, that's where I'm getting at. Like, you're talking about 1% or more of the entire Russian population is now being affected. Yeah,
110,000 dead. You're talking maybe 300,000 injured.
Yeah.
So by the end of the year, you're talking up to 700,000.
Yeah.
Either dead or injured.
Which is
of Russians. So that's one then, right?
Yeah. So at that point, then so that's a collapse of morale situation. That's a collapse of the front line situation. You should be seeing Russia getting knocked back further and further.
Except the opposite.
Except it's not.
But he's not even looking at that. He's seeing Russia, like even the Western media is reporting repeatedly, like, and they're some of them are turning towards, like, Ukraine can't hold on any longer. They can't last much longer. The front line may collapse relatively soon because they've just taken another kind of major kind of transit hub or a supply route hub, Chazov, I think the city was called.
Yep.
The Russians took that, and they're steadily making progress. But Trump just thinks that, but he just says this stuff that is completely orthogonal to objective reality, that even his own media, like not the media that's against him, but the media that's would support him, is pointing out that that Ukraine isn't doing well. But he
and not
so
only
the guy
that, and
doesn't
also
think
it's like
he's 81. What do you want? Is he 81? No, he's not 81 yet, is he? Soon. How old is he? He's 7. He was 78 when he started. Maybe he's, I don't know, let me check what age he is now. Does he get older, or is he just
stays the same age?
Is the Coke Zero keeping him young?
Yeah,
all that aspartame,
the lifeblood.
It's aspartame. It's kind of like, I think it breaks down to formaldehyde. So maybe it's kind of like, that's what
preserving his brain
from aging. He was born in 1946, so he'll be 80 next year. 79.
So even his own media, like you were saying, the ones that would support him, and also the ones that are the detractors of with TDS. The numbers that I can remember is like, Russia can produce like 10 shells for every one that the West can provide. Right. I mean, that's, maybe that's not entirely accurate, but it's multiples.
Yep.
It's multiples, whatever it is. Whatever the West can produce in terms of shells, in terms of bullets, in terms of freaking everything, Russia can do it multiple times over. But he doesn't. Do you not know that? Do you not know how war works? That if someone can, like, shoot 10 bullets for every one of yours, that they're more likely to win.
Exactly. Yeah. Unless it's just like, these are all Russian conscripts that are being forced into. They're all convicts, they don't want to be there, and they're giving up en masse.
They're like, giving up as they move
this war
forward.
has been an example. When you look back at it, you're going to have looked back on it. You'd be able to look back on it and see it as a war that, to a large extent, the West tried to win via propaganda purely. But to see, they tested the theory that you can win a war just by saying we're winning. Despite the fact they progressively were losing and losing, they kept saying we're winning and thought that the band was going to make it, if I say so. Yeah, it's pretty sad. Anyway, you remember when people had diaries and people get mad if someone read it?
Yeah.
And now people put everything online and get mad when people don't read it.
It's true.
That's how bad the world is. That's how far we are from those days of
yesteryear,
when everything was awesome, right?
Yeah.
Everything was great back then. At least if you read novels and stuff. Definitely was. My wife had put on a mud pack on her face the other night.
Yeah.
Tried to have a conversation with her when she had it on,
Yeah.
You should have seen the filthy look she gave me. These are really bad.
It was a bit muddled.
Yeah.
Oh, that was bad.
Someone told me my clothes were gay. I said, yeah, they came out of the closet this morning. Enough! Stop! He's dead already.
I can't take it.
All right, that's enough of that nonsense. We'll leave it there for this week, I think. Unless you got something else, Adam. Any important information?
Well, Ghislaine got moved.
Yeah.
Don't know what that's about.
Well, that's because some legal strategizing or something like that. You know, she's filed an appeal. She was meant to give a deposition or whatever, or talk to, but instead they've decided for some legal strategy, whatever, that instead of doing that, that they're going to file an appeal first and wait until the outcome of that appeal. So the plan to have Pam Bondi or whoever, some person from the Trump administration, talk to her and get this information that's been put on hold indefinitely until they hear the outcome of her appeal. So, but that sounds like some other maneuver going on in the background. It's like she'll make an appeal with the promise of giving information. You know what I mean? It's almost like I don't want to give information that might be valuable to the government. You know, it speaks again of corruption in a certain sense, where she believes, or her lawyers believe, that the government can put pressure on to get her maybe released or whatever.
Yeah.
But if the information, the thing that, you know, what she has to offer is information, but instead of giving the information up front and letting the government then decide whether or not it's useful, she wants to file an appeal, and in that appeal process, use the promise of her giving information that might be useful to the government to influence the appeal.
Yeah.
So you want to have the legal process going first.
That makes sense.
Because otherwise they'll just take your information and then leave you in jail.
Yeah.
Say, thanks, see ya.
Yeah, thanks, bye. Yeah, so there's also ninja swords are now banned in the UK.
Nice.
Let's see, also in Victoria in Australia, they've banned the sale of machetes, and they've set up machete drop boxes. So you can take your now illegal machete to the local constable and say, here you are. Drop this off.
Is that because, you know, the average average white Australian kind of guy, or average Englishman, is very fond of carrying a machete in the streets?
And a ninja sword.
They're the kind of people who would walk down the street with ninja swords.
But not just walking down the street with them, but also stabbing other white people with them.
Other English people, yeah.
Yeah. That's why.
That's got to be the reason why they're doing that.
Yep.
It's just this explosion of interest among native English and Australians in carrying machetes down the street. They're the ones who are doing it. Yeah, for sure. That's got to be it. Yeah, we're glad we clarified that one. Okay.
Yep.
So we'll leave it there for this week, folks. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the show. Thanks for being there. And we hope you enjoyed the show and for commenting. And don't forget to, if you haven't, like and subscribe and
tell
that stuff.
Tell Neely Bob how great he looks.
And thank Neil for all of his contributions this week. Psychic contributions.
Yep.
Stop looking at me like that. All right. So yeah, we'll talk to you next week. See you later. Bye.
Bye.